been having conversations about sales and marketing since you all got back from the holidays. I know I have definitely been involved in a few of those communication cycles over the last couple of months. And after so many years of listening to some of the opinions and diehard positions on some of this, it's time for a little clarity. Which is why today I want to talk to you briefly about some of the best practices in marketing and have open, frank. It's really not a conversation because it's really me just giving you my opinions. But honestly, we're going to talk today about why marketing breaks the ice and makes cold calling, well, less cold. So before I do that, let me give you a little bit about me so that you understand where I come from in this. I am the director of marketing here at Prosperity Plus. Some of you watching this already know what I do because I do it for you and your business. But if you're watching this for the first time and you're wondering who this guy is and where has he come off putting himself on a video, I've got some experience up my sleeves here, and my resume goes back quite a few years. I started my career in publishing, actually, got out of school all hot and heavy, ready to take on the news world. And I didn't really want to become the next Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw or anybody like that, to date myself. Um, but I did want to do writing and journalism and cover, human interest type stories. So I did that. And I did it on a weekly level. I did it for a number of magazines. I ended up going into a B2B trade magazine, which became the most successful weekly trade magazine for the electronics component industry for several years. And I covered that whole sales channel between the Intels, the AMDs, the Motorola's of the world, and their distribution and rep channels. And that's where my beat was. So I defected from journalism, if you will, in 93. And since then have been involved in B2B strategic marketing and creative ways to get people to think about your company, understand what it represents, and why they should consider your service or product. And over time, have some sales as a result of that. So my job has taken me into industries including some imaging, a wide variety of imaging technology. I've certainly been involved in business systems, copiers, printers, mailing equipment, identification systems, blah, blah, blah. There's so many spokes on that wheel underneath the business systems category. I've been involved in electronics, as I mentioned just before, and that really involves everything from semiconductors to connectors to capacitors. Anything you want to put in one of these devices, there it is. And to this day, I still have a hand in that industry with a client who's been my longest standing client, who is a manufacturer of components, capacitors, and discrete semiconductors. So we do a lot of creative things now with their positioning, which is a constant effort. Life science, a lot of healthcare. Again, I don't deal directly with hospitals or doctors per se. My toe in that water has always been in the upstream level, some of the technologies in screening and diagnostics and instrumentation, and the services and support around that. And believe me, I learned a lot about what it takes to get positioned in that market, because with regard to doctors and people who know quite a bit and are set in some of their ways, getting them to change their minds about certain vendors and suppliers was a big, big challenge. Not impossible, but as long as the client has always had this open mind and willingness to commit to the process, we've always had a good time and we've always had success. I've been involved in the performing arts. I worked for an arts council for a while, still play around in that once in a while. And environmental stewardship, I threw that bullet in there because it's something that is a passion of mine. I am also the president of a lake association in northern Vermont, which I do pretty much everything that I'm going to be talking about here and have talked about in terms of positioning and awareness and visibility and education. I do it for them. And how we do it is different from one business or organization to the next, but the same rules always apply. So that's a little bit about my history, and I really want to really quickly walk you through a few facets or phases, I guess is really what we should say, with regard to how do clients get warmed up, prospects, how do they get warmed up to a sales conversation and sales cycle. And I'll give you two scenarios that you'll be very much have some, you'll be able to relate to very easily. We'll talk a little bit about the, oh yes, maybe I should think about you phase, and then obviously the very uh, nuts and bolts of this is what happens when sales. When does sales get involved? How do they get involved? How do they relate to marketing? And believe me, this will go very quickly from this point forward. What does a sales rep want? Yes, they want the sale. Yes, they want the commission. Yes, they want the recurring revenue stream. Yes, but there's something that reps often don't say that they need and want, and they should be asking you for this. They want a lead that is more likely to say yes to a conversation. A cold lead is not going to do that without marketing. They are not going to want to engage even more today than 10 years ago, when they could at least see an ad, see it online, call, email. Now they want to circle in a nice safe orbit around their landing spot before they get engaged, before they have that, oh my gosh, a real human being. And yet they'll tell you they like you because you are available to them and you speak to them and you're a real human being. They still will need that comfort zone and their gradient approach before they pick up the phone or email or whatever their entry point will be. So that's tough, because that we're talking about cold calling. Cold calling is not easy. I have to do it. It's not fun. It's difficult. Sometimes it takes a lot to get motivated to do it, especially when you have other things to do. But let's put it this way, no matter where you are in your sales life and success, you're often going to be reaching out to people who are not anywhere near ready to buy, much less have a conversation. And that's what marketing is all about. Marketing is really the engine that works behind the scenes to change that. How you do it tactically is obviously through your digital ads, through your maybe still print ads, social media, email campaigns, all of the things that you use to reach your message and distribute your message outward. Totally fine. And SEO and marketing attracts people who already have a need and might be looking for a solution. That's the conventional way of looking at marketing. Outreach, inflow, yay. But there's a long communication lag between that point and the time you first reach out to these folks. And I know that you know that. Well, what happens is you want position. You want some prospect who doesn't know who you are, what you represent. Oh, and by the way, they may not even realize the need for your product or service yet. Marketing requires the frequency of message and awareness of message. It has to impinge, it has to be creative, and it has to have a wide cast. It has to have a wide distribution field, because a rep, no matter how good they are, a rep cannot possibly reach out by phone or email to enough people, enough cold people, to be able to generate the kinds of results that they need and want. It just doesn't add up. Marketing does that. Marketing provides that wide outflow, presuming you have the channels open to that. And in some cases, I hear, well, we don't really have a list, or our email list is ancient. You have media for that. There are ways to get that data. Well, we rely on cold calls or word of mouth. Word of mouth, wonderful. It's probably one of the most fabulous ways to get ahead of the shortcut and jumpstart things a lot quicker if you have a referral. But again, that's a one-shot deal. It's you can probably count on two hands how many times that probably happens over the course of a year or less. Marketing is the thing that gets the numbers out there. It gets the distribution, the dissemination out there. And that's what begins to establish the awareness, certainly the visibility, and the repetition of that message is what establishes the position, provided the creative is there and the creative is telling the right message, right? Whether you have a phone locked in an ice cube to represent cold calling or some other visual that is a maybe an impinging piece, certainly designed right, and it carries across the entire series of things that you're doing tactically to get the word out there, including what they see when they ping on the website or the social media page or the video. Continuity. Continuity and consistency are going to establish your credibility. You're in the market, you are available, you're not going anywhere, and you are a reliable source so that when people do finally have the need, they will reach for your product, your company, your rep, your service because you've been there. You're the little kid that keeps standing next to the coach on the little league sidelines and says, I'm open. I'm open. Here I am, coach. I'm ready to go in, ready to go in, ready to go in. And when finally that starter twists his ankle, gets knocked out of the game, you've been there the entire time and you're just got to throw them in there. And your willingness to participate at that point is when sales gets involved. So instead of calling someone who has no idea what you are, no idea that they even need you, your rep is going to be following up with someone who, after they've seen the marketing, now they're possibly already curious. Tell me about what you do. I have a particular need. I'm interested. Now, that happens usually at somewhere at the top of the funnel, somewhere midway down the funnel, but now they're engaged because your website experience, underscore the word experience, is inviting, it's engaging, it's not telling them too much where they don't need to further the conversation, but now they're engaged, they're clicking on things, they're playing with things, they're downloading things, they're watching videos and things, all of which are testimony in your credibility story. So I can't stress that enough. Frequency, creativity, repetition, and willingness to sustain it. It's marketing. It's marketing, it's marketing, it's marketing. And when that curiosity at their prospect side finally gets them to the point where they're now, hey, you know what? We have a contract that's expiring. That system over there just went down. This other company's been talking about don't spend blah, 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 or don't worry about this. Give them a call. Let's find out about them. Let's find out what was the name of them again? They were the people that did that funny little ad, or that email keeps coming to us, or they do those webinars. Let's click. Let's find out if they're worth something. Now marketing has finally done its job. And yes, all of that is trackable. It is a wonderful engine because it is trackable. So don't tell me it isn't. By the way, I have an article on this. This is all in writing and you can always download it. There's the link right there at the bottom of the screen. You know, why marketing breaks the ice. This is all something you can read, share. Please download it and have at it. So sales and marketing are not, yes, they are separate entities, but they are very much dependent upon the other. Sales and marketing, they're not competitors. I've been in situations where sales and marketing were always in a conflict. I don't know why that ever got there in the first place. They're partners. They're partners with the same objective. Marketing warms up the leads. Remember that warm up? It warms up the leads. It educates prospects and builds credibility. Sales takes that momentum, takes that credibility, that collateral, that mind share, the mind share. That's the word, and turns it into real business because sales follows up, sales reaches out, sales stalks appropriately because you can see who's clicking where in an email campaign. You can see who's tapping into your social media accounts. You can see that. Sales can follow up on that. If sales is not willing to engage in that or any of those activities and be on social media in the right places, marketing will be severely restricted. It'll be almost held down. So the two really depend on the other and need to communicate and work as a team. When marketing puts a campaign out there, the salespeople should be presenting with the same theme, some of the same graphic elements. You can talk to your creative group and have the director of creative make sure that the tools are the same, that the taglines and the positioning statements and the vocabulary, all of those things are still being used and used properly. Long time ago, I dealt with a company in capital equipment, and the sales reps were always trying to go head to head against much better entrenched competitors. And they were always talking about, let me tell you about the box, let me tell you about the box, let me tell you about the box. It's got green lights, it's got red lights, it's got these different switches, and it's a wonderful box. And oh my gosh, you're going to love the box. Let me tell you about the box. They weren't making any headway because the other boxes were just like it, and they were already, there was no compelling need to switch. We got in there. We talked about time. Because apparently there was one thing that these boxes could do, and that was less waste, less consumable waste, certainly faster. And what does fast mean to a prospect? It meant, in this particular case, it meant saving time. Boy, was that a button we pushed, and pushed it hard. In fact, our campaign theme became, it's about time. It's about your time. And nowhere in this dynamic industry is time more important than what you do. That was the entry point. That was the button that really got people, it touched the nerve on the prospect side. Tell me about this time saving thing, because I'm doing twice as much as I was doing before. I'm having to handle more volume. I have fewer resources at hand. Does your system offer me some sort of time savings? Notice I haven't even told you what the box was or the industry. We're talking about the entry point to somebody's mind. All right. I'll tell you that story if you give me a call, and we'll have a wonderful time telling it, because it took a lot for us to get to that point. It also took an even longer time for the sales reps to change their ways, because even long after we had launched the campaign and introduced the rationale for it, did a nice video introduction for it, we still had reps going out there going, well, let me tell you about the box. It's got green lights, red lights, blue lights, and it's got even some of these switches that do this and that and so forth. And it's got these, oh, it's a wonderful box. You're going to love the box. And we slapped them back and forth and finally got it in their heads that you need to talk about time. That's the conversation starter. So this is why sales and marketing are not quite as separate as you might have thought. When marketing does its job right, that cold call really is going to feel less like an intrusive call to the prospect and more like really a continuation of a conversation that started even before the sales rep was on the phone. That's the portal. That's the wormhole we have to navigate, and that's how you turn cold calls into warm experiences, warm conversations, warm connections. That's what salespeople need to make this whole thing right. So, very quick. It's about coming up on 20 minutes. I've indulged your time long enough, but I really need you to think about the fact that marketing is not something you can just simply dismiss. Not anymore. It's not something you can say, well, it costs us too much, or we tried it once and it didn't work. There are probably very specific reasons why it didn't work. Like maybe you only tried it for one email blast and decided it didn't work. Maybe you didn't have the right salespeople following up. There are actions that need to take place. So marketing is really all about, it's a positioning strategy that creates the awareness or the reality that you exist. It creates a little affinity. And in this case, that affinity is very valuable because that is the turning point. That is the difference between, no, I don't want to talk to you, or maybe I do. That's that yes, maybe. And the willingness to hear or read or engage with your website or maybe even your people at that point. If you don't have the awareness, you don't have the reality, you don't have the affinity, the willingness, you're not going to have the engagement. You're not going to have any kind of communication with the prospect or enough prospects. Okay, so That's my pontification for the day. Thank you for listening and watching. I encourage you to go get the article. Don't get left out in the cold like our little Labrador puppy here wants to come in. People are out there who are needing your product. They need your service. You know that. If you didn't know that and agree with me on that, you wouldn't be doing this anymore. If you want to check out anything that I do in terms of some of the creative campaigns and samples, I got a bunch of them. Go to the prosperityplus.com site, go to the marketing communications tab. You'll see some gallery items in there. It's probably a little out of date because it's like constantly being changed because I do more and more every week. But you'll get a good taste of the type of creative that you can do. Certainly in the business systems industry, you'll see some other things in there too. And look me up on Google if you want. Look me up on socials. You'll see some other stuff there that I do with some of the other creative work. And I would definitely encourage you to reach out. My email address is right there. My direct line is right there. I would love to chat with you. It's wonderful to be able to do that and make things happen and have a successful year and maybe even change a few dollars that are going to your competition and have them route to you. I think you might deserve that after all. Thanks for watching. I will speak at you very soon.